For a few years in the 1970s, the Mr. Asia syndicate made millions.
Heroin creates its own market. It acts like a form of plague.
Until jealousy, betrayal and murder brought it all crashing down.
Then he just pulled out a gun, shot her in the back of the head, and then said to Wayne, "You're going to help me bury her."
This is Mr. Asia, A Forgotten History. All episodes now available on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You're listening to the Weekend Sport Podcast with Jason Pine from News Talk ZB.
In Australia, to get us underway this hour, Queensland Reds coach Les Kiss, speaking of the Reds, has been named as new Wallabies coach, but he won't replace Joe Schmidt until the middle of next year. Now, Joe Schmidt, you'll remember, announced in February he was stepping down at the end of this year's Rugby Championship, but now he will stay in the role until after the Australian leg of the New Nations Cup in 2026. Les Kiss, meantime, will see out his contract with the Reds, which includes the 2026 Super Rugby season. He will then take over the Wallabies from mid-next year until the end of 2028, which includes, of course, the Home World Cup in 2027. Joe Schmidt will coach the side for this year's British and Irish Lions Tour, the Rugby Championship and the Northern Tour. Australia's all-time leading World Cup try scorer is outside back Drew Mitchell.
Drew Mitchell, backing himself. He did it at Twickenham in the European Cup final. Amazing. Mitchell, Ashley Cooper for a hat-trick. And that is surely checkmate. What a break from Mitchell. Floating round the back of this maul. Here he is. Too many runners. And Mitchell just takes the line on the inside, flailing Argentina defence. And he could have finished it off himself, but unselfishly gives the pass. An ugly left hand, but it gets there.
Yeah, one of the great players to wear the Wallabies jersey, Drew Mitchell, who joins us now across New Zealand. Drew, thanks for taking the time. Les Kiss to coach the Wallabies from mid-next year. Is this a good outcome?
Yeah, I think it's the best outcome that we could have hoped for. I think all parties involved, be it Joe Schmidt, Les Kiss, but also the Queensland Reds and Wallabies, all get what they need and what's best for them. And what I like about Les Kiss's appointment is the continuity that is possible from Joe Schmidt's departure into Les Kiss taking over. They've worked together previously. They work really well together. And I think, honestly, that Les Kiss is the type of guy that will lean on Joe Schmidt as an advisor throughout his time as the Wallabies head coach as well. So Joe's done some amazing things with the team so far and laid some really solid foundations. And I just think, again, that continuity going into Les will bring his own sort of style and own touch to it, but it won't be a complete upheaval of the program and start again. And I think that's what's best for what the Wallabies need right now.
How much involvement, official or unofficial, in the Wallabies do you expect Les Kiss to have this year and at the start of next year?
Look, I think probably the end of season tour, maybe the Rugby Championship to some degree as well. Les Kiss will sort of be around the environment. I know that last year he was in the coach's box a couple of times on the end of season tour as well. So maybe at that point it's for professional development, but I think moving forward, he'll just sort of get in there and just sort of see how Joe Schmidt's operating and also get to understand some of the players from the other states. Obviously, he's got a really good understanding of the Queensland Reds guys, but just to be able to sort of sit there and lean on the knowledge that Joe Schmidt has of these players on and off the field, their preparation, all that type of thing, what drives them, what motivates them, all that sort of thing, so that when he does take over, he's best prepared because, like you said in the opener, Les Kiss will be at the helm during the Home World Cup in 27. So any type of insight that he can get and understanding will only serve him for down the track.
Once he does take over, it'll be about 14 months until the 2027 Rugby World Cup. Will that be enough time for Les Kiss?
Well, I guess time will tell. I certainly think in the modern day, like we just sort of said, Les will have some type of involvement for sure. And he's also got now like a clear runway. He'll have an understanding of when he's going to take over, and he'll be able to put things in place to put himself and the Wallabies team in the best position possible for that home World Cup. That being said, obviously the rugby landscape is very competitive at the moment, and many teams are going to be at that 27 World Cup knocking on the door and with the potential to go and win it. So, Joe, and also I guess the limited time that international coaches get in the nature of the world rugby landscape these days through Super Rugby and that type of thing, every little opportunity or every training camp during those times will be crucial. And I'm sure, now that he knows when he's going to be in the role, he's got a little bit of time before that actually happens. He can really plan that out as best as possible.
This seems to have been a fairly popular appointment. How is Les Kiss regarded in Australian rugby circles?
Yeah, I think he's highly regarded. Obviously, he hasn't been a head coach of an international side just yet, but you've got to be in that position to prove what you're worth. And I think everything that Les Kiss has done with the Queensland Reds is putting a lot of confidence in those that made the appointment. But I think also just Les as a human being, very much like Joe Schmidt, like he cares about the players. He's he's a solid guy. He's an honest guy, but also obviously drives some pretty hard standards as well. But I think just speaking to some of the Queensland Reds boys that have played under him in the last couple of years, they all speak very highly. And he's just really big on that sort of the connection piece, really connecting with his players, understanding who they are and what drives them. And off the back of that, he really gets the best out of them. So, yeah, I think Les is certainly a popular appointment, and hopefully we see him have some success with the guys in the goal.
Has Joe Schmidt improved the Wallabies?
Yeah, I think undoubtedly. When he took over from Eddie Jones' second stint as Wallaby coach, things weren't necessarily in a great position after the was disastrous 2023 Rugby World Cup campaign. But I think he's just he's put a lot of confidence in the guys. There's probably a fair bit of doubt in a lot of those players' minds, and also a little bit of uncertainty with the nature of where they were at with World Cup selection and some of the stuff that was going on with Eddie Jones. So it's a real sort of steadying of the ship with Joe Schmidt, and then he really looks to be getting the best out of the players. And I think also, like, if you look at Super Rugby this year, the Australian teams are much more competitive. Whilst it was bad for the Melbourne Rebels, it's sort of been absorbed. It meant that that talent has been filtered through the other teams, and I think we've certainly seen the benefit of that this year so far in the Super Rugby with, I guess how competitive we've been compared to previous years. So off the back of that, Joe Schmidt has done a great job, and I think, we're in a much better position now going into this Lions series in July than we were 12 months ago.
Going to ask about the Lions tour, something that doesn't happen very often, only once every 12 years. How much excitement and anticipation is there about this upcoming series?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I think everyone's sort of got a bit of an eye on it and frantically getting around trying to secure tickets, but also just really understand where you're going to spend your time, because there's just so much going on, throughout that Lions tour. But I think also from north of the equator as well. The supporters of the Lions haven't been able to tour for 8 years because of COVID in 2021 through the South African tour, so they weren't allowed any fans there. So these like all the touring supporters are really pumped for their first tour in a long time as well. So it's just bringing so much excitement to the game, which is what rugby's really needed here in Australia. Obviously, it's a pretty competitive market, and we haven't been very successful for a period now. So this is sort of, not to use a pretty common phrase, it is the shot in the arm that rugby needs here in Australia.
And as you mentioned before, Drew, all four Australian sides playing well in Super Rugby, still in the playoff mix with 3 or 4 rounds to go. What have you made of the strength of the Australian sides in Super Rugby this year?
Yeah, I've been really impressed. I think the Reds and the Brumbies are probably the two that are standing out at the moment for the Australian teams. But in saying that, the New South Wales Waratahs, they've got some talent there. So if they click, they can really make a run as well. But Western Force, obviously, not so good last night against the Blues. Really competitive. Last couple of games, to be fair, on their trip to New Zealand, they've been really good till half-time and sort of just dropped off and has blown out a little bit in the second half. But that's probably just sort of speaks to the injury depth that they're dealing with at the moment. But just on that one really quickly, I just thought it was so great to see my mate Curtly Beale back after 10 months out with a ruptured Achilles and just come in and play 70 minutes and be really, really solid and score a try. So that was also great to see.
Yeah, I saw some cool stuff on your Instagram as you were cheering him on. Yeah, it was even over this side of the ditch. I can tell you, it was great to see a guy like Curtly Beale back out there. What about James O'Connor, Drew? He's turning heads at the Crusaders. I mean, any chance he plays for the Wallabies this year?
Oh, look, I think there's definitely conversations that would be had with Joe Schmidt and whoever else is involved in terms of selection. He meets the criteria. I think I just think that move to the Crusaders was exactly what he needed. And I'm also super proud of just the way that he's sort of been embraced by the Crusaders fan base and the players as well. There's been some moments that James has had in those games where you just see he's a really valued member of that team and how they sort of really embraced him. And obviously then his experience coming off the bench. I just think he's found a role that really suits him with where he's at in his career right now in terms of coming on, being able to manage a game, put the team in the right positions, but also have the cool, calm collectedness to be able to close out a game, which we saw just a couple of weeks ago when he hit that penalty goal to win it. So I think when you're looking at it, the Lions series most likely is going to be pretty tight. And if you've got an experienced guy like that coming off your bench to close out a game, a guy that's been there before and he wasn't able to be successful in 2013 when the Lions came here last, but he'd love a chance to go out there and try and, square up the ledger and get a win this series. I think that James O'Connor needs to be considered for sure.
All right. And just before you go, I see it's also a decade since one of your wins at Toulon. You had great success over there during your time at Toulon. I think, is it 10 years to the day that you won? Was it back-to-back championships or something?
Yeah, that's right. So the European Champions Cup, obviously the semi-finals are on this weekend, and it just so happens that 10 years to the day that we beat Clermont in our third title, back-to-back, like you said. So, some great memories, and also just it gives you an opportunity, I guess, when sometimes you hit these little milestones and memories sort of come up on your Instagram or whatever, just to kind of go back and reflect on some of those times and the players that I was able to play alongside, some real sort of great players of the game, but also just great humans. So, it's been nice, and also it fires up the old group chats with the old Toulon teammates, and we get to relive a few of the moments on the field, but also afterwards as well. So it was a special time.
Outstanding. Hey, Drew, thanks for joining us across New Zealand today. We can't wait from this side of the Tasman to see how the year plays out in terms of the Wallabies up against the Lions. Thanks for taking time for a chat today.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for joining us, Drew. Drew Mitchell there, the leading World Cup try scorer still for Australia. Went to 3 World Cups.
For more from Weekend Sport with Jason Pine, listen live to News Talk ZB weekends from midday or follow the podcast on iHeartRadio.